All right. Who we are paying for the criminal enterprise. We are paying for the whole plan to conquer the world. We are the British Empire reborn. It's all up on my website. Folks, it's not just Israel. Who started Israel? Oh, the Rothschild. Who controlled Rothschilds? Showed you up on my website. It's just the British are playing a part in this. And let's go back to 1940 and hear from the Honorable J. Thorkelson of Montana in the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, in order that the American people may have a clear understanding over a period of years, who, over a period of years, have been undermining this republic in order to return it to the British Empire, I've inserted in the record a number of articles to prove this point. These articles are entitled Steps Towards a British Union, a World State, and International Strife. This is part one, and I hope, and in this I include a hope expressed by Mr. Andrew Carnegie in his book entitled Triumphant Democracy. In this he expresses himself in this manner. Let men say what they will, I say that as surely as the sun in the heavens shone upon Britain and America united, so surely one morning to rise and shine upon to greet again the United States, reunited States, of the British-American Union. This statement is clear, and the organizations which Mr. Carnegie have endowed have spent millions in order to bring this about. This thing has been made possible by the scholarships, exchange professors, subsidies of churches, subsidies of educational institutions, all of them working for the purpose of eliminating Americanism as was once taught in our schools, and to gradually exchange this for an English version of our history. These organizations were organized to bring about a British Union, a union in which the United States would again become a part of a British Empire. However, this has been upset to some extent by the attempts of internationalists to establish their own government as an international or world union. Therefore, there's a conflict between the two, for England wants a British state with America as a colony, and the international money changers want a Jewish-controlled union in order to establish their own world government. It is therefore, said Thorkelson in 1940, best for us to stay out of both of these in order to save what is left of this republic, as it was given to us in 1787 by people who knew more about an international intrigue and the real problems that confronted the world than we know today. These early founders not only understood the problems, but in drafting the Constitution, they provided an instrument for us to follow so that we could remain secure from foreign double-dealing and intrigue. And that's just one of many links that I have on my site here. When I talk about the Constitution, when I talk about the Republic, when I talk about home rule, when I talk about county rule, when I talk about Liberty Villages, when I talk about restoring the self-sufficient family farm, I'm talking about doing something for the American people. I want to do something for the American people. I want my grandchildren to grow up able to work, able to own property. And it tells you right there in the Communist Manifesto, they don't want you owning private property. They've got it set up. If you don't continue to pay the taxes to the banksters, you lose your property. You pay the interest to the banksters to loan you the money to buy your property. You pay the money to the bankster to loan you money to buy the materials to build your house with. We can do this by ourselves. We don't need the banks. We can finance our own houses, and that's what we're trying to set up right now. Read the Communist Manifesto. Get the Citizens Rule Book. It's all up on the Free American page. You can read the Constitution yourself. You can see that we're talking about the law of the land here, not something not some conspiracy theory, the duty that was laid on us when all of us took an oath to defend the Constitution, not the president, not the corporation, but the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so you understand how far back that goes. Now, what Grandma said, in case you have not noticed, since the PSYOPs $3.4 billion criminal enterprise deregulation operation here in the U.S. since the 1980s, the infamous years of the S&L crisis of Neil Bush's Silverado savings and loans. Oh, there's that Bush name again. The U.S. Senator Charles Keating and Senator John McCain, the Keating Five, allowing banks to cross state lines, and the illegal and unconstitutional striking down of an act of Congress known as the Glass-Steagall Act of predatory banking, stealing assets, property, mineral, and water rights has reached an all-time high involving the nations and the allies. Barack Obama's campaign unveiled its latest attack on October 6, 2008. A 13-minute documentary on John McCain's ties to Charles Keating, who was charged with fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy in the savings and loans scandal of the 80s. And it's currently June 8th, 2012. President Obama has been president for several years, done nothing to solve the criminal enterprise activities being mentioned in the October 6, 2008 video, becoming a part of the problem by passing unconstitutional executive orders to assist those involved in the banking criminal enterprise enrichment. Now, you did notice the word alleged was used in striking down an act of Congress, didn't you? Used by criminal enterprise to deregulate or take away the protective shield of the law, protecting the American people and allies of this U.S. banking system, which is also a UK banking system and a private corporation called the Federal Reserve. Under the supremacy clause of the law of the land, the Constitution for the United States, common law, i.e. common law, an act of Congress which protects we, the people, cannot be set aside or struck down with first going by the paper ballot vote of we, the people, like it or not. Those of you involved in the psyops of destroying America, this is the way the constitutional law mop flops. And that's one big whopping if someone who is knowledgeable of constitutional law, who would discover Glass-Steagall is still alive, still breathing, but locked up in the closet, banging on the door to be released, and no one is around to hear the banging on the door because they have the earphones and cell phones to their ears and cannot hear Glass-Steagall banging on the door for one of these educated idiots to open the door. As times get more desperate. The hunt for assets, the money, collateral, gold reaches all-time frenzied highs. Global finance, economics, banks, nations crash to unbefore-known depths, not even comparable to the crash of 1340s by the corruption of the merchants of Venice. The old boys are getting more desperate. Since the widow of Russell Herman, V.K. Durham, who I just spoke with this morning, that's the CEO of the Durham Holding Trust, she escaped the clutches of financial terrorists, lucky to get away with her life, escaping from those who lured and literally kidnapped her and then indulged in a conspiracy to steal the trust and an alleged $17.5 trillion in gold bullion held in Colonel Herman's CL Limited accounts. They screwed up on the, according to V.K. Durham, they screwed up on the $17.5 trillion in gold bullion, then headed for the murdered Gunther Rushbacker's 300,000 metric tons of Marcos gold in the Bank of Bavaria, Austria, Germany, France, and Switzerland. Colonel Rushbacker's widow has replaced murdered Colonel Russell Herman's widow at Aspen Manor, 1500 Brinker Road, Wellsburg, West Virginia. Colonel Rushbacker's widow, Raylan Allen Rushbacker, has alleged in her writings, many regarding the bank accounts of her murdered husband, Colonel Gunther Russbacher. Like the widow, V.K. Herman, widow Russbacher brought her dogs to Aspen Manor, see puppies at play. Raylan walks around the courtyard of Piece of World, as I did with my little Pekingese buddy. Little does she know what's in store for her from these financial terrorists who instill trust in their victims and then destroy that trust by deception. I believe Raylan and I are in all probability the only two primary widows left in the Contra affairs. Both of our husbands were key figures in the gold transactions at that time, and here's the situation. These financial terrorists could not get a hold of the CI Limited alleged $17.5 trillion gold bullion. They cannot get control over Durham Trust or the estate of Colonel Russell Herman, which leaves the only thing left being 300,000 metric tons of Philippine gold, which Raylan alleges she and Gunther took to Austria. Raylan further alleges she controls the Archat Dam, a bogus doppelganger, OITC. These black Eckers were murdered once the Malaysian courts determined their prime bank instruments were a fraud, which brings about this current dilemma. What's to become of Europe as Spain straits will become newly dire. The whole Eurozone convulses over its debt crisis, and that's in the news too, folks. The common prayer is that Germany will rise up, reject outside help, and protect the European household. The Spanish banking cartel states that the trustees, officers of the Durham Trust back in August, VK has been kept on the move, and the project of bankrupting the U.S. Treasury and U.S. Federal Reserve is so far along, she will never be able to figure out what we've been doing fast enough to stop us. Those involved by murdering the CEO of Cosmos Seafood Energy Marketing and forging his signature to an assessment of interest actually believe they had control over the U.S. debt instruments known as bonus commodity contract 3392 and certificate of debt number 81 of May 1897, that they could overcome the banking mess created by the Chicago banking operation through the Continental Bank and covered up by the U.S. House member Henry Hyde, which involved the LaSalle group of bankers, which included City Jamie Dimon at the time, who moved to Bank One after deposit of the stolen Illinois prime bank instruments valued at $3,812,792,613 plus, now currently belonging to J.P. Morgan. A lot of financial leverage for financial terrorists when leveraging off ledges such as prime bank financial instruments. Regarding the Secretary of State, Illinois, tampering with U.S. mail, all these claims, all these court ties, all the, more money to lawyers, and you got Arthur Anderson, Illinois Power, Dinergy, and all on the same documentation with the Durham Holding Trust, with V.K. Durham as the executor. There's a matter of more shenanigans, according to Grandma, by J.P. Morgan, utilization of smoke and mirrors while manipulating off-ledger transaction. Interestingly, a sleight of hand in deception in the financial and economic markets designed to confuse the banking community regarding the American bondholders, i.e. Durham International. And again, company after company with J.P. Morgan right in there, playing right at the top of the pile here. And these are the people, the J.P. Morgan, what did Bush do? He walked out of the whole thing. And he got taken out. see what we got here. Yeah, that's probably true. The true goals of the elite, according to the protocols of the elders of Zion, is to confuse everyone to the point where no one knows what's true anymore. Yes, that's happening. Yeah, Grandma's talking about this high finance, but she's also saying that the financial disintegration hanging over us in 1995 with the collapse of Mexico, Orange County, British merchant banks, was the result of 30 to 40 years of disastrous financial practices by which banks built up huge fictitious financial bubbles. The critical difference between 1345 and 1995 was that in the 14th century there were as yet no nations, no government had national sovereignty to control the lands and the creation of credit or to force the banks into bankruptcy in an orderly way, and replace fictitious bank credits and money with national credits, nor was the papacy, the world leadership of the church, fighting against the debt looting of the international banks then as it is today. In fact, at the time it was allied with and aiding and abetting them. And there's links here for the Venice-created global financial collapse. Now, see, they're talking about this Horowitz and Kane, scrutinized by Horowitz and Kane in this early thing. They're trying to say that Fulford terrorized Harl, openly promoted his close family relationship with David Rockefeller. And they also, Grandma goes on to say here, and I trust her more than I do Lynn Horowitz, that not many are aware that Edward Harl, a.k.a. Christopher Story, and V.K. Durham, a.k.a. Watcher 51445, former Rumor Mill news agent, had worked together for years. And since 2002, before Watcher 51445 came into existence, mutually sharing information regarding the subject of Christopher Story's video. And V.K. Durham is the one Christopher refers to as cousin across the pond. We're not going to go to that link right now. So, Grandma's going on to say, as the financial terrorist circled the Contra colonel's widows, one widow holds a trust which holds the estates of one of the murdered colonels, which is for we, the people globally, to restore infrastructures, etc., while the other widow reportedly states she and her group are leaving the United States, going to an island where they will have the very finest, and the useless eaters will become their servants, who can wait on her and her group. And I believe Grandma is referring to Rayland Allen. And what do you want to know about Operation Watchtower? I got handed the documentation on Operation Watchtower. I checked it all the way out through the participants, through the libraries. I wrote a story about it, got threatened by the CIA. Operation Watchtower ran in conjunction with Ollie North and George Bush's Iran-Contra. They just didn't talk about this. This Operation Watchtower and Operation George Orwell were top secret. And it was the CIA and Mossad bringing in the drugs in this country, like they've been doing from the beginning, like they did in China, like the British companies that ran the China. There was your Operation Watchtower. Yes, sir. We got Okay, let's see. Let's check out a few other things here. And all right, you got that done. What do we got here? Let's see. Let's check a couple of the other chat rooms here, and see what we got. All right, we're just about out of time. So, just to make my trolls happy, let me tell you, I do have books for sale. I do have fiction books for sale. I do have Mystery Babylon, which is the whole history of the Rothschild, the whole history of the, and for you people to just sit out there and do nothing but gripe and gripe and gripe, go to hell. You're going to get the government you deserve. If you start listening, if you start working with each other, you start talking to people and finding out what their assets are, rather than what you can say nasty about them, we might get something done. But the ones that are doing that, you're working for the other side. You're working for the Leonard Horowitzes. You're working for the Rothschilds. You may be working for the Pope. You don't know. No, I don't mention trolls in my books, because you are nothing to me. I do it. There is one book I'm working on that I might be able to use some of you trolls in. It's called Scammers. Welcome to a world where nothing is real. The people ain't operating. The people ain't real. The people ain't. The women ain't women. The men ain't men. They ain't lawyers. They ain't cops. They ain't nothing but trolls. They're trolls. They're scammers. You are scammers. You're the ones that are calling me a scammer. Why? Because I want to sell a book I wrote that I spent the last 40 years of my life writing. I want to sell that book, and I'm scamming you. I've been doing this radio show for 25 years. I brought you some of the most intelligent people, some of the people that are your heroes that are part out there, the Eustace Mullins out there, the people that wrote the books, the Alfred A. Dash, the Aaron Russo, the people that are actually out there doing something. I brought those people on here and I've introduced you to. And you want to say I'm a scammer? Okay, all right, all right. How about this? Kiss my ass, Ted. How about that?
You didn't say brother.
No, I didn't. I sure didn't, because he ain't my brother. Well, you know what? The whole degeneration of society, the Jews were running the alcohol, and they're using the Italians the way they used the Romans. I guess the way they used the Italians for years. Huh? And the paraphernalia industry was taken over by Jews. Adam's apple was Don Levin, and they also took over the pornography industry I happen to know because I covered one of their murder trials. It's they don't have the same morals. Now, I'm not saying that Christians are without fault. I'm not saying that. If a Christian wants to come in, Clay, have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Master? No, I'm afraid I haven't. I hadn't seen the ID. You know, as soon as he pops into this chair, shows me some ID, maybe I could go along with giving away something that ain't mine to give away. You know, maybe so. And so I do have books for sale. They're on Amazon. They're on. I prefer to sell them direct. But if you want to spend money with Amazon, you can certainly do it on there. You can also buy them direct from the publisher. If you got a bookstore, it's all there. It's all there. And Jesus tried to tell you folks exactly the same thing that I've been telling. That God is within you. And if it's good for me, it should be good for the Jewish family next door, or the Muslim family across the street, the black family on the left, or the white family on the right. Now, if you want to go live in a white community, you can live in a white Liberty Village. If you want to live in a brown community or a Jewish community, you can do that too. 10 acres right down the street there. Stay off of mine. Stay out of mine. Now, you want to come into my store? You want to buy my books? You want to buy my videos? You want to buy my vegetables? You want to eat at my restaurant? Do that. You can spend money with me. Maybe I'll go over to your Jewish community and buy my lox and bagels. I think that's the best thing you Jews have ever done. But, you know, maybe there's something good. Let's see. Okay, here. Uh-oh, somebody in the other room. Again, here is a Jew threatening to expose this Nazi Jew-hating bigot, and he's gone out and bought free American websites, he's trying to tell you that I support child-killing Nazi J.T. Reddy, who was never convicted of anything, who never killed anybody, who was murdered by some of this Jews, Mexican drug dealers, and he wants to sell me all of these freeamericanradio.com. He wants to sell that. You know what? Let's see. We'll just make it short and simple for him. This is another profiteering Jew trying to destroy something, just the way Leonard Horowitz wants to sue Anthony Hilder, wants to sue Mott, TJ.
Going on in the world that mainstream media won't tell you. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs. TruthRadio.com. The Truth.
The recording has been completed.
Us here at TruthRadio.com. You know that we talk a lot about the monetary policy of the United States and of the nations around the world. We talk about central banks and the fact that money can be created out of just the flash of a pen or the clicking of a computer. And I think you pretty well have